Hi and welcome to my playhouse, and today we're gonna have a little chat about heat pumps because well, it's a very touchy area right now. There's a lot of natural gas that is a very big problem right now, and one of the solutions that you might have to go to is to get a heat pump. This is a special heat pump. Oh well, it's not really that special. It's an air to water heat pump, which means that this unit is outside and it heats the water inside. And this is done if you have a radiator system inside, a central heating system in your house with radiators. Then this is a very good solution, especially if you have floor heating, like pipes underneath your floors to give you heat from the floor and up. If your house has gas heating, you get about 90% efficiency from the gas. Like, you get some gas in your house and you burn that, and you get 90% efficient heat out of almost 100. It's very good. If you use a normal space heater, it's about 40%. Somewhere the power plant might be burning off some gas, and when that power reaches you and you burn it off in the noisy birds, and you burn off that electricity in your space heater, well, it's 100% efficient in the space heater, but burning the gas in the power plant and getting the power to you, you're only getting 40% of that energy delivered to your house. But that's where a heat pump can make the difference, because these heat pumps, if you put in 1000 watts of power, you get more than 1000 watts of heat out of it, which is different from a space heater, because a space heater you would just get 1000 watts of power and 1000 watts of heat. I have another one. I have one here as well. It's a project that hasn't been completed. The idea is that this one is going to run off solar. This one runs off normal grid power. But the idea is that it's cheaper and more efficient to move the heat than create it. It's like shoveling snow. The same reason that you don't use a flamethrower to melt the ice and snow in your driveway, but you just shovel it out of the way. It takes a lot less effort. And in this case, we are taking the heat from outside and putting it inside, and it's mind-blowing how that is done. Because how can you take, right now it's pretty chilly out here, I believe it's below 10 degrees Celsius. It is still able to take some of those 10 degrees from out here and put them inside, and it does that by cooling the air that is out here. And when it cools the air, it has a temperature difference, and it can deliver that inside. It does that by compressing some gases that has a really low boiling point. Like these units can be efficient all the way down to minus 15 degrees Celsius. So even when it's very cold outside, it can still deliver more than 100% heat. You put 1 kilowatt into it, it will still deliver more than 1 kilowatt of heating inside. And it says it on the side of them. Here's the label of the smaller of the heat pumps, and you can see it's rated. It will use 1.5 kilowatt of power, rated power input. It can do more if just when it starts up, it will take in a little bit more power, 2.25 kilowatt when just starting. It will deliver 6.83 kilowatts of heat inside. This is not really that commonly used. That is when it gets to deliver 35 degrees warm water and the ambient temperature outside is 20 degrees. When it's 20 degrees outside, I wouldn't need this to run at all. So that's not beneficial. But down here, if it's 7 degrees, that's pretty much how it is right now. I get 5.85 kilowatt of heat for my 1.5 kilowatt that I put into this device. So it's giving me a very good return on my investment, if you can say it like that. Also says down here that the working temperature is minus 15 degrees, so it can go all the way down to minus 15 degrees. It's not going to be very efficient at that temperature, but yeah, it will still work. It will still produce some heat. but it will run a lot more. The really big beneficial thing with these pumps are that they are heating the water out here. You can see I have some pipes here, so these are connected to my water system inside my central heating water system. That means that everything you see is right there. That's a bit of a lie, because there's a buffer tank in the basement. These devices, it's like your refrigerator. It doesn't like to be turned on and turned off all the time. The less you can turn it on and off, the better. What you do is you heat up a buffer tank, and then the buffer tank heats the house for a while, and then when everything is getting cold, it starts up the heat pump again. So that's beneficial that way. But here in Denmark, I am allowed to connect this myself, and I have done that myself. Connecting this with the pipes and all the stuff. All the heating in my house, central heating system, I'm allowed to mess all that I want with that. The cooling system inside of here, I'm not allowed to mess with that, but I've never had to mess with that because it's a closed off unit. It's like your refrigerator. You never do anything with your refrigerator. You don't have to put on gas, you don't have to take out gas, and it's like that. I haven't had any maintenance done on this for 8 years, and this unit, when I got this, I didn't have to have any maintenance on it. There's some limitations to how much gas that can be in it. If there's too much gas in it, it has to be maintained every year. But this one was small enough so that I didn't need that, so that was cool. Oh, let's see, do we have any good numbers here? It's heavy. Yeah, it doesn't say a lot. This one has an electric heating element. If the temperature becomes so low that this one is not able to produce any heat, it can activate a 6 kilowatt heating element in there. And when that happens, all my income just goes directly to the power company. That is expensive. But yeah, this one is from 2011, so I have had this for a while and I haven't had any issues with it. It still runs very nicely. So it's really easy to connect as well. There's a connector there, there's a connector there, so there's like cold water comes in here, warm water comes out here. It needs some power, and the small wires here, there's a temperature sensor, that's one of them, and the other one is the inside remote to turn it on and off. Easy peasy. Okay, so we moved inside. This is a normal space heater. It's an electric heater. I haven't plugged it in because I'm cheap. But you plug it in and you put some power in it. I believe this one it can do 750 watts, 1250 watts, or 2000 watts, depending on how you set the switches. And there is a thermostat, so it can turn on and off by itself. But it's very pricey. With the power prices at the moment, it's not cheap. When I was a big boy, I had a workshop and I was still living at home, and it was out in the garage and there was no heating, and my mom said that I was not allowed to use a space heater out there. It was too expensive. So I used the vacuum cleaner, because the vacuum cleaner, well, it did only make 750 watts ish, but I was always just vacuuming a little bit, and it heated up the place a little bit. So when you put 2000 watts of electricity into this, you get 2000 watts of electricity out. That is a COP of 1. And that stands for coefficient of performance, COP. And the best heat pumps that, at the time of this writing at least, was about 5. That means that if you put in 1000 watts, you get 5000 watts of heating out of it. So this is the manual for my new heat pump. So I thought that we should just look in that, and we can see what it can do. It says up here that it can do down to minus 15 degrees Celsius ambient temperature, and it can still deliver 60 degrees warm water inside. That's not gonna be great. That will bring this COP way down, but it says that it can do it. I'm not advertising this company. It's just the company that I got my heat pump from, or purchased it, and yeah, I had the manual for it, so I thought that we should look at it. And there is Very good descriptions on how to put this up, how you're not supposed to put it on the ground, you're supposed to put it on some concrete blocks, and very good idea to not have something fall down on it. Very nicely. They have also added that it needs to have air around it. It uses the outside air to heat up a gas that is really cold inside of it. So it needs to have some airflow around it. So you can see from the back wall it needs 15 centimeters, half a meter to each side, and about 3 meters in front of it, and also walls to the side and the ground and stuff like that. It needs a little bit of space. And here is a very sophisticated diagram. This is overkill. Yeah, I don't know why they have done it this complicated. You have the heat pump, you have a buffer tank, you have the remote control, and down here you connect power to it. It's really not that complicated. Oh, it is showing the radiators and the floor heating here as well. So, yeah, too complicated. This is more how I like it. So you have the outside heat pump, you have the remote control, you connect it to some power, and you have a temperature probe that goes into the buffer tank here. So the heat pump is warming up a buffer tank, which, well, as big as you can get it and have room for. The bigger the buffer tank, the better, but don't go overboard. I believe mine is 200 liters. And this is a very simple setup. Then you connect the buffer tank, or connect to these lines here, and connect that to your central heating system, just like you would connect any stove or gas stove. And much of the rest of it is how to program the display for temperature and stuff. So, okay. There's the manual for the other heat pump, the big one, in Danish. So that's a great thing. I found this that I have printed out at some point. This shows the temperature in the area where I am at, and it's an average from 1961 to 1990, and as you know, the temperature has only gotten higher than that. Oh, the red one is day temperature, the middle one is, well, average temperature, and then there's the night temperature. So night, average, day. So doing a year, the blue ones are rain, so that's what, and that doesn't matter for what we are talking about. But over here is the temperature, and only at night here in December and January and February are we under 5 degrees. Are we very far down in temperature? And that is important, because remember, this works down to about 15 degrees minus, and more or less we don't really have that. We don't have days where it's minus 15 degrees all the time. So the area where I'm at, I can use a heat pump a lot of the time. I do not need to use it in like this part of the year. So it's these 3 months and these 3 months that is interesting for me. It also tells me how many sunshine hours there is, so that could also be interesting. And that is mostly located in the months that I don't need heating. So here are some interesting charts on the big heat pump. And this is nothing that you really have to worry about when using it. But down here we have the cup, how efficient it is. And the large heat pump, it's an older version, so it goes all the way down to when it's minus 10 degrees. In worst case, we are below cup 2. There's a big difference of how warm the water is that it's making. If it has to produce 35 degrees warm water, it's a lot more efficient than if it has to make 55 degrees warm water. And that's where these 3 lines comes in. The top one is the red one, that's 35 degrees. The blue one is 45 degrees, and the green one down there is 55 degrees. They should have swapped those around. That would have made more sense. But here it goes all the way from minus 10 degrees and up to 15 degrees. And we can see at about 7 degrees, 7 something, is where the average temperature of my area is all year around. And at that point, the heat pump gives somewhere between the 55 degrees is very low. I have mine set to 45 degrees, which is the middle one, so I get about 3.2. I would estimate a cup value of 3.2 in that instance. The very low temperature is almost 4 for. It's an older heat pump. It has been working well for many years, as you have seen. Oh, just look at that. That's a piece of art, right? Let me just explain what this is. It's a house. That's the roof. It has a chimney, just to make it look like a house. I have drawn some radiators in the house, and the radiators, well, they have a hot line coming in and they have a cold line going out, and all the radiators are connected down to this buffer tank down here. There will also be a pump that pumps the water around, and that could be right here. The water goes that way. That's an arrow that is going down, so the water is being pumped down there. And then we connect our heat pump from the outside, so the water that is going into the heat pump goes that way, goes in there. In here there's another pump that pumps the water that way. That's an ugly arrow. And then we have the warm water that comes out of the heat pump, comes that way, and goes into the tank here. It actually just shares the water with the radiators. There's not a heat exchanger or anything. It's very much recommended to have a filter on here, so if there's any old gunk or radiators are getting rusty, well, it's not going into the heat pump. So yeah, let's just for the heck of it draw some kind of a box here and says there is a little filter here. They are very cheap. I have actually done a video cleaning out the filter of my heat pump. I do that once a year ish. So now the heat pump is outside and it warms up the water, it warms up the buffer tank here and supplies the radiators. Then there is we have a display in the living room up here, so that we can turn on and off the heat pump. This is very bigly drawn, so that has a little curly wire that goes into the heat pump. Then there is a thermostat. That's just something that goes into the side of the tank here and measure the temperature, and that's another curly wire that goes into the heat pump here. So that's 2 wires, and then we have a power for it. So we have a switch, and there's a power connection. So yeah, now it's suddenly ugly and sophisticated, but yeah, it needs power. It needs water in, water out, temperature sensor to turn on and off, and somewhere where you can control it. You set the remote up here to what temperature you want to have in your buffer tank, and there's a lot of other stuff that can be set, but you don't really need to set it, but it's rather simple. If you have a very modern house, you might have floor heating, and that is exceptionally good with a heat pump. Other than that, it's really good to have really big radiators, because if you have really big radiators, you don't have to have very high temperature of the water coming in to heat the radiators and heat the rest of the area. If you have very small radiators, those radiators have to be very, very warm to heat the house. But if they are very, very big, they don't have to be as warm. And there you get a better efficiency of your heat pump. The COP becomes bigger, which is a good thing. The heat pump doesn't use more or less power depending on the weather. This is actually the power usage. There's a difference of how much power it uses with the different temperatures. It doesn't use as much power if it's heating the water to 35 degrees as if it's heating to 55 degrees. And we can see this in this graph down here. The red line is down here and the green line is up there because they're opposite each other. The green line uses 4 kilowatts and the red line, which is the cheapest one, uses below 3 kilowatts of power. So if we take 7 degrees over here, we can see that, well, it uses the same amounts. Let's go for the blue one and say that it uses 3.3 kilowatts, and we can go up and find the blue line up here, and for those 3.3 kilowatts we're getting 10.3 kilowatts. So it's a COP of 3 point something. Yeah, they have gotten better since this. What I am dreaming about and why I got the second heat pump, let's just draw that. That's the second heat pump, is because I want to get solar panels on my roof. and I have started that. I haven't completed it yet. This heat pump that I have out there, the big one that we saw, that's a 400 volts heat pump. So it's a 3-phase heat pump. It needs a rather big power connector to do that. And to do solar, I got another one that uses 230 volts. Just to make it more simple to power it from solar. So from solar, I'll bring the power down to a charge controller. Looks like that. Has a display, some buttons, and then that one has it needs some batteries. I'm just gonna draw one. It has an output port, and there we have an inverter that converts DC voltage to AC voltage, and then that goes into the heat pump, and then I can power that heat pump from solar panels. And hopefully, like today, it's actually very sunny, so with this setup I would be able to heat my house on the good days using the sun alone. And if I heat it a little bit too much during the day, it will not lose all of that heat during the night. I'm hoping to have like 1 month in each end of the heating season where I can heat the house from solar power, and maybe if there are some really good days during high of winter where the sun is good but the temperature is low, it could do the same thing. And I plan to put up some extra solar panels. This thing uses about, what did we say, 1.5 kilowatt? And the solar panels that I'm putting up, they are 285 watts. Oh, 85 watts. So I need about, I need probably 6 panels. Under ideal circumstances, but I actually have 12 panels, and with 12 panels I'll be able to run it more than if I had 6 panels, because 6 panels, they would need to have good solar. The good things about the heat pumps is that they don't run all the time, so they can charge the battery for a while, and then when it needs to run again, well, it can use solar power and the battery, and those two combined will make it run longer. So that would be ideal. I have had a heat pump for many years and it has done really well. Most of the time I'm able to heat most of the house with this wood stove in here, which is also very efficient and very cheap, but it's a bit more messy. There's a bit more work with it. I would really like to have the solar panels on my roof that delivers free power that the heat pump can use, and I can just have a thermostat and it will do all the stuff by itself. If there's enough power in the battery, it will start. If there's not enough power, well, Morten will have to turn something else on to keep warm. And if I can cut off a month in each end, well, the firing season will become a lot shorter, and the work that I have to do supplying wood for the wood stove and carrying in wood and all the hassle becomes a lot less, and it's much more manageable, and there's a way bigger chance that I'll actually do it and not just run the heat pump for the whole time. So yeah, that's a win-win. So I hope you got something out of this. I have no idea. When I film this, it's always very messy in my head, and sometimes it's way better when I have edited it. So I hope this is the case. So yeah, there's a lot of people that needs to find a new way to heat their homes. Yeah, we will get through this. Summer is coming, so there is that. There is time to prepare for the next heating season. So I hope you keep warm. Thank you very much for watching my videos. Do subscribe to my channel so that you can see me again, and have a really nice day. Bye bye. Oh, I just found that I have had my heat pump since about that date. I've had it for 10 years except 1 month. So 9 years, 11 months. So it's way older than I thought it was.